Hello, Americans. Now, New Yorkers, especially differentially. Nature uses especially differentially the other species bodies of the individual body, human species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies. A human fact, human nature breaching method, the proverbial devil, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded. The only people who could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries as locations, areas, and states everywhere the human species body is. A breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded them to blame other things, others, or selves for things that it did and sustained upon humanity. Specifically, have them blame people, try to overcome it wrongly. And then to have that needed to be countered properly, but have them improperly counter it and defend it syntactically and physically, leaving out the breaching method's roles, not even discerning it, not even discerning how that took them and takes them away from the words that nature wants us to have for the people of the sciences. For example, we all know that we have black pupils, whites of eyes. It means to discern right through the worthlessness of the sense and sensibilities of people who are the experts on the sciences regarding such. Left out, worse than left out, replaced. How this is gotten away with, pretend things that are pretended debatable that are not, by because nature shows us, is relative because they have our founders' communications replaced. They have the words of everyone leaving out what our founders declassified about why and how nobody had free speech, and simultaneously everyone had to pretend other to an extent. /s, or that body was sensed and it was adapted to, including if it was a majority of people, including if it is everybody. Now, if someone wanted to debate this legitimately, their logic, their nature of logic would have demonstration /s of the same. See, this breaching method already showed everyone how to read the laws and statutes and precedents, how to blame other things, others, ourselves, for things that nature itself is demonstrating to us, and that our founders communicated to us and would be demonstrating to us. But we have. This is also why we were supposed to understand why and how James Madison is the only founder they had the security to let us remember the name of. To have declassified, even once James Madison was a president, he still did not have free speech. Someone must teach vaccines. I teach us things, but long. So they have a lot of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that nature is demonstrating relative to how the suburbs are tactically denatured. Their homes with the slavery was entrenched in northern colonies, southern colonies, and roles with it, and then America's founders were born. To end that, James Madison's plan caused the Civil War. The experts on war are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong. That country's A through Z. So have forgiveness for our own and for them. And hear the love part with terrorists. And hear the part where originally and still, in other words, we're being taxed for things, we're being like for better than free. They should have like that. There's lead in the pipes in Michigan. So everyone keeps running into that same, the suburbs are designed for a torture, extortion, slavery method. The only reason they get away with debating it is while they're self-valuing everything in place, right where the only answer correct is James Madison's plan. Had to force everyone to become a unity and simultaneously nature of independence. It was against the laws and the sense and sensibilities of not just witch trials, branches of government that were involved with slavery at the same time, even if the witch trials were made up. There's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. And then and now they still have other at that founding location. at those founding locations and at the other founding locations across the country. Sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, and self-valued sickly non-distinctly. They have self-valued roles, collusion, /s, not even realizing. 2, tactically delusions are placing what James Madison, what our founders communicate, black pupils. I'll discern what generates black pupils' whites of eyes. And fish with eyes that look so much like human eyes. Other species bodies, totally individual species bodies, all with quality aspects of nature distinct, but also non-distinct, and with our own and simultaneous. We are distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous, but also per further distinct identity of simultaneous nature, per a further distinct identity of value progression, generating all things. The identity of relativity / hyperrelativity. We can discern it this way, and the ancients did. This breaching method uses things to measure and maintain, to have everyone's sense for it, everyone's sense and sensibilities for the breaching method, pretending that relativity is theory and associating it with math. So that each of the sciences have their science, have put physics before, out of sequence, where it is valued with relativity and reason. We have to understand this principle about James Madison's plan. We have to understand how they declassified and how nature itself shows us nobody had free speech. There were internationally monitored conversations, for example, that wasn't alone. The difference of their guilt with it, forcing everyone to collusion, measuring and maintain everyone's collusions, even with slavery. Sickly multi-front against every human difference, female, male, Native American, colonists. Same thing with the states, Irish, Italian, etc. Inter and intracultural. This breaching method brought suits and ties, counts, exceptions. Rich or wealthy compared to us, most people, but still they're the hyperpossession of the breaching method that thinks for them. And that shows them that they have to hide. They already have collusions. The breaching method uses and used leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. For example, WFSB, CBS affiliate, attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. As mixed and fake ties to doctors too. They attached little kids, me as a little kid, and then as an adult, they put me to fake ties to doctors. Some of them, in other words, that weren't at all. All kinds of medical corruption, and the courts have collusions with it, and further hyper additionally with the state judicial branch offices, and the differences of guilt with there, or conjunctions to it and to that, with foreign and domestic military too, and their roles with two-route highway increasingly, with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, and their educators. In other words, Mike Roberts will tell you that. I don't know the kid's name. Mike Roberts, too. I never tried to contact the Mike Roberts. These are people who do little acting, and they're covering up what comes first. These are people who have roles with the judicial branch offices, conjunctions to it and to that, with families that used to live in my area, who have involved with multiple police departments. They're using crime methods where they put multiple falsified police reports and make confessions, switching officers' names and make the confessions about that, but put a charge, but leave nothing to respond to, without picking one of the narratives and leaving out the other ones. So in other words, they won't get on paper legitimately. The courts even switch names and sequence too. The same ones have been doing this with names on all sides of their cases, collusions with their own families too, and victims advocates with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and sexual and medical offenders of kids. A John DeMore and other with rape confessions and ties to a Heather Hanson's confession to other people and reported conversations with this, for example. with the courts and the campuses, intercities, intra-cities, are increasingly people who I never even had classes with who have been planting evidence on all sides of my house and involved with the conversations with this. Increasingly, fire departments. There are probate court judges associated with one and a family member of people named Della Fera, and they have roles with other agencies and foreign and domestic medical families. I never saw them on my campuses. People with the name Della Fera. They've been pretending they know me and trying to make pictures and make it look like other locations. Some ways I made it look like that by mistake too. Like when I went to the, because the way they made me feel bad when I went to the this stuff tied to the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, who messed with people like that were spying on me, and using that where they force people to speak through others so they could put fake transcripts in databases and stack predicate acts, fake ties, fake natures of ties between people as collusion, screening fake motivations, because their motivations are a whole bunch of different countries. Involved with some Mendez police too. I never had a class with, never saw them around school. They walked by a couple of times. There were a couple of exceptions, and those exceptions were influenced, criminally foreign influence. There are recorded roles with that. Increasingly with them, we're at the Wethersfield police station. The older men, apparently they're brothers. The older Mendez police brother attached me to fake conversations with him or any other police officer there when I went there. And then one word of conversation. And they forced my Saudi friends to collusions with them with that. I found out people with the name Scalora have collusions with people named DeMoro, says it's their cousin. And they have roles with Heather Hansen and others with multiple home break-ins, but with other people too with her in the area. And with the untimely death house, that they were used /us of it, and then years later too, the same house on Pondside tied to my past neighbors, involved with the untimely death at Trinity College, and a Joshua Schumack, who affected punk confessions because they were like halfway, and recorded collusions with various natures of federal criminals, and some of them as co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a bunch of people that have roles with predicate acts on my street in Wethersfield, Connecticut, who have been putting predicate acts at campuses I went to, and with their conversations with teachers I had, planting evidences at the campuses and next to them, and their roles with the untimely deaths years apart, and the principal child abuser in Wethersfield. They're brought up intercities. Murders were brought up at the same time. Names next to body dumping spots. Sandy Hook campuses, including a prison there, has collusions with the judicial branch offices and corrections offices. You have a lot of real big mass amount of fake punks with the mind, and they jump in and tell people to take their meds when they're speaking about predicate acts. They're hiding, faking, and changing, including ones about the World Trade Center. I was next to the World Trade Center attack. I was right next to the World Trade Center towers. Right before the attack, were you? No. I'm the one who recorded them with the principal child abuser first. Did you guys know? You fake ties and you fake motivations. There's an O'Neill family who has their kids involved with wire crimes and federal evidences crimes, organized crimes, next to the campuses. I don't even know what they look like. They have roles with the police chief Cintron, with the Jessica Cintron, Reno Mazzucato, and other family members of them. I don't even know their names. Their roles, the places, locations tied to them, like West Hartford, the border of New Britain, Central Connecticut State University, New Britain, Connecticut, and West Hartford there, with a Reno Mazzucato's sister apparently. And I don't know Reno, their kids and their brothers. I don't even know his brother's name. They like try to take a picture near you and they have them act. They have roles with foreign and domestic intelligence and overt criminal enterprises and private ones with the same house /S involved further with a Phil Cologne and a bunch of people with the corner of Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield involved with the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices with a bunch of wire crime acts and methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders too with them, putting fake transcripts, fake phone train conversations, fake ties to me, fake natures of ties to me with a Steven Stocko. I had one word of conversation, one sentence to him in my life. He's involved increasingly with Wethersfield police, refusing to identify themselves legitimately, refusing to put legitimate records. They do the same with the fire departments involved. Who knows these people named Delafera? They have roles with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with probate court judges. They're also involved with sick, criminally foreign influence uses of elderly homes, where elderly are locked in there now. And with the programs do that. Oh, but that's our job. Evil people have been speaking about their jobs, self-valuing how everyone has replaced too, what James Madison had declassified about the value of the jobs, what nature itself shows us, the value of the jobs, leaving out the criminal foreign influence / hypercriminal foreign influence. Slavery was forced north and south sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. And that was functional too, because it's left out by everyone. So it can sense everyone's self-value rules. Replacing James Madison's plan is the only correct answer, but pretending other anyway, that's not good. A good campus. That's A through Z, including the worst campuses. In other words, all we need is honesty. See, but they want honesty towards people checking, and what they're checking is to make sure they're bridged, or the counter is as collusion / too. Because this breaching method has everything it does is through ourselves, or having ourselves sense anybody doing proper, speaking proper, like regarding black people's whites of eyes. With nature itself, we should have been able to show all the ways we could discern and to record it. There are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought readings of statutes and of precedent and of exceptions that have been in our collusion /S with all locations /S as a hypercrime scene. I'm not even a lawyer. Lawyers, all sides of criminal civil cases, the news, the interbranch at the same time, the intelligence, they self-value the same secret ships on a mass scale. It's recorded. We have means to discern this. We have to get me out for fake conversations with WFSB. They have a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime acts and methods. WTNH has sources with them along Route 175 and conjunctions to it and to that, involved with retired police chiefs like a police chief Cintron, involved with his family and intimate ties to them. A whole bunch of people tied to a Jonathan Maiano, increasingly involved with sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with people at location /S in conjunctions to him. And his roles too. And their roles with 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, intercities with the campuses, and all kinds of medical corruption with the houses, businesses, next to Hartford Hospital's campus. See, these are even medical campuses and fire campuses. In other words, they have these little kids, faking and hiding their family's criminal foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence. They're in here. Ones with the name DeMoro and Maiano, involved with Italy, with psychiatry, with drugs and medicines crimes, involved with the courts and police forms that are also in America, with some sexual medical offenders of kids. A whole bunch of people tied to a John DeMoro. I recorded them involved with wire crime acts and methods, federal evidence crimes with Wethersfield police, predicate acts with them as families, intercities, and their roles with my 5th grade teacher, with people before and after that, increasingly tied to relative body dumping spots, and rape confessions and rape threats on the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page after the World Trade Center attack, which is recorded proofs of their collusions with people that were also before the World Trade Center attack. They have Harper Courts and the Britain Superior Court has collusions with his girlfriend with a Harper Court. I didn't know at the time she was with the court, but he brought up the courts in confessions and requests for help. And then he brought the dean's son into it. I never saw Eric Burgess on a campus in my life. He has West Hartford campuses and Central Connecticut State University. in New Britain, Connecticut, is involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members, and people with the body dumping spot of a serial killer and that serial killer involved. Also, intercities and intra-cities, and was in the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, conjunctions to that and to that. And they switch names and forge names with the courts in sequence shifts. They have an officer Hunter involved with Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, also with a girl Emily or Amy, and an officer. They're not getting onto paper legitimately, and their roles with Park Street and Alina's Pizza has a Daryl Sullivan, who is tied to a Lance Cuddy, and they're involved with sexual medical offenders of kids, including Wethersfield Police involved with Saudi Arabia with them, and name switching and forging roles they were forced Saudi Arabia to, distinctly from the Wethersfield Police, but Wethersfield Police did too. A bunch of people further with WTNH and FBI have a Michelle Sandquist, I believe is her name. Since she was a kid, I even responded to her. I was only polite to her. She had roles with a Lance Cuddy confessions, and it was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. People, a former mayor Gold and his family, a bunch of people tied to him, are involved from other areas with federal evidence crimes on my street, of different natures of organized crimes too, with the news recorded as the value of their fake conversations with me. Has increasingly, in other words, I don't even know their names. I only know two of the names of like 4 or 5 brothers, reportedly. And I saw a picture, in other words, and I saw one at like along Route 3. People with the name Della Fera and tied to them have some probate court judges with all kinds of roles with courts and prosecutors and courts in prisons. And they have drug crimes where they're putting fake transcripts in databases. They're using everything that comes before them to hide what came first, what their actual value is now actively, and what is to come, as the breaching method shows them they need to do it. It also has something to do with their roles with Town Line Drive. Increasingly, these are people involved with senators. A Congressman Larson, is increasingly involved with people associated with security with the campuses, and with a Guy D. Novellis. And I'm sorry I have to use your name, Guy D. Novellis. It keeps getting brought up. There are intelligence families involved also with the Della Fera family has some probate court judges and some other judges involved with some organized crimes with the databases with people on my street when I was a kid, and all along Route 175 from Wethersfield's founding locations to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, are people that also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have collusions with that. And in other words, I can't get them on paper, whether it's these Mendez police. I don't know if you know that Eric Mendez and his older brother, reportedly his older brother, and he has uses different names too. But he put me in a fake conversation with him. I never had a word of conversation with him ever. One of the Mendez brothers. And I never had classes with them. They tried to make a fake exception of knowing me real quick. I saw his face. I never saw him. I didn't know who he was in middle school. That was only one fake exception they made with the people tied to the state judicial branch offices, named Potter, and a whole bunch of other people I don't know. And there's a guy with a red pickup truck is involved where he's making the kids, not want to, but self-guided rules. But they don't know how to speak about what they know what's going on because they're being forced to repeat fake things. The little boys and the little girls sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too. There are measured self-guided collusion /S with that. There are people at the campuses you can't just call up to complain about it because of the way they're using confessions non-verbally too. As people tied involved with other campuses with the principal child abuser. Like Rock Hill campuses have a bunch of people with intelligence associated with Jonathan Maiano and with his family. As the other intelligence report expressed, demonstrated, confirmed this to me. And his roles with the WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. A Mark Violet and a Mike Violet have people with the military and other things associated there on Elm Street and Rocky Hill, and their roles with the names next to the state capitol, involved with federal evidence crimes, acting so they other people could take pictures and then pretend we're lying when we say we don't know them. They try to make fake exceptions of knowing us. As people all along Route 175 in conjunctions to that, and to that has something to do with their roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences, crimes, acting so others can film fake things. Increasingly, that ties people all along Route 175. I minded my business in life. They're also the courts jumping into our conversations, lying about our motivations, attaching us to fake feelings about, fake knowing them and other strangers. You got to get them on paper, one name and sequence. FBI Director Robert Luskin is also involved with the Pittsburgh Court, the District Court, and Hartford's courts, families at West Hartford locations before and after the World Trade Center attack, preventing me and others from having free speech by stealing us to fake speech. Also with the networks. They also have the Facebook pages of Stephen Colbert involved with worse than criminal incompetence. Don't be clowns and change your fake and hide what people say about predicate acts, about with the child abuse acts too. Get them back on paper into branch. These are ones interstates that were next to the court, next to the World Trade Center too. They have collusions there with names on all sides that case, their sources. The same thing with the court itself has roles with a sequence shift. New Yorkers. These are sick people. Watch what I caught them doing. These are also their roles with the schools, with the families, that even the ones that aren't tied to the medicines and psychiatry, but they have collusions with those ones. All kinds of collusions with Washington, D.C. involved with that. 2 speech class teachers I had, increasingly involved, all kinds of natures of organized crimes, and people involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch putting the same fake things in there. And all along Route 3 has conjunctions with it. Mike Pandolf was influenced to make confessions about his roles filming girls. And then there was something like that with the filming in the Wethersfield Police Department reported. But they also have Rocky Hill involved with the Wethersfield Police and along Route 3, like not far from where there's a Mazzucato bakery reportedly involved with the Wethersfield Police Chief Cintron and his daughter and their family involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and faking passions and emotions and motivations to screen the foreign countries involved, including Saudi Arabia, involved with them intercities and interstates and internationally with World Trade Center predicate acts and with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and cover-ups of their roles with rackets with differences, past, active, and to come. That's why they don't follow mandated law. That's why they have criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw readings of statutes and precedents and exceptions that we have left that they need to pretend that they don't realize about. Breaching method shows them that. We have black pupils, whites of eyes to discern that. We have James Madison they're replaced with both James Madison with Nature communicates about how there was a breaching method entrenched. Rules was even replacing what Nature when Nature communicates with black people's whites of eyes, and when nature is not only itself as criminal insidiousness. You guys have had the communications of our founders replaced in the most important one, James Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. See Marbury versus Madison. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB and with the courts like New Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, and the fake changed and hid ones and obfuscated ones. They're involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime, foreign and domestic military, and the World Trade Center attack, predicate acts of WFSB after the World Trade Center attack that instantly recorded their collusions with people named Scalor and others before the World Trade Center attack. Bunch of people with Harvard Hospital have roles with WFSB with names next to campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. There's also at medical campuses where they're putting fake transcripts in databases. And while their delusions rot, and that's relative too. Ugh. Fear God to hide and plot. I rap a lot.